Okay, hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And now I'm going to explain modernism and the alternative literature in 18 in 1920 until 1945. And here we will talk about the characteristic of the era, the characteristic of the work, the famous author and the works, and review and reflection. So the post-war period was haunted by long memories, some tender, some angry, most sickening. According to the critic and poet Herbert Reed, writing in the Criterion in 1930, it had taken more than a decade of ex-combatants to come to terms with what the war had meant to them and with the debris of its emotional conflict, before they could begin to transform their experience into literature. Nevertheless, nevertheless, it was really implicated in the idea of the front lines of the unfeeling wildflower not by Lutyens as much as that of the equality in different poppies, corn flowers, skylarks, and rats of the poetry that had image of the war, that effectively marked the end of an art which had one reach for comforting or sympathetic images from nature. So the optimism of progressive British intellectuals about the fallen achievement of the first worker state was formed in not simply by Soviet propaganda but by a pained awareness of the manifestly poor working and living conditions of a large percentage of their fellow countrymen and women. The Britain of the Britain to which they mounted troop returned in 1918 and 1919 proved not to be the land fit for heroes promised by the wartime Prime Minister David Lloyd George. Despite the social reform initiated by pre-war liberal government, the condition of the industrial and agricultural poor and of the unemployed often contrasts as starkly with that of the rich as it had in mid-Victorian Britain. So there was relatively little any democratic government seems to be able to do to reverse the devastating effect of the economic depression on heavy industry. Westland inserted themselves into more than simply the literary imagination when the industry of a town has been killed. The trade unionist and politician Ellen Whitson wrote in her propagandist study of Thoreau, the town that was murdered in 1939. It seemed as difficult to apply article respiration as on a human corpse. Bloomsbury was never a formal grouping. Its origin lay in male friendship in late 19th century Cambridge. In the early 19th, it found a focus in the Garden Square house of the children of Lacy Stephen in unfashionable Bloomsbury. It was only the formation of the Memory Club in 1920 that it loosely defined the limit of its friendship, relationship, and sympathy. The discussion combined tolerant agnosticism with cultural dogmatics, progressive rationality with social snobbery, practical jokes with refined self-advertisement. When in 1928, Bell attempted to define civilization. He identified and acquiesced Bloomsbury ideal, the core, the verve, and witty columns of difference of the Enlightenment. To its friend, Bloomsbury offered a prevision of a relaxed, progressive, and elite future. To its enemy, like the ones patronized and later disparaged D.H. Lawrence, it was a quiet little world peopled by upper middle class and black peoples. Much of Lawrence's best poetry, concentrated, short and unrhymed, appeared in the volume Birds, Bees and Flowers in 1923. In the poem Face, for example, he offers an analysis of the fruit which first suggestively between the culinary, the botanical, the symbolical, and the sexual. Elsewhere in the volume, analysis is subsumed in attempt to on the poet part to feel himself into the life of an animal or to identify with the intensity of life her observed in growing and moving things. Eliot later affirmed, affirmed that his own prose style was close from on that of the subject of his dissertation, but something of Bradley's intellectual influence can also be indirectly felt in the concern of the broad range of his writing. Although he disarmingly claimed in 1964 to be no longer able to understand much of his own argument, his emphasis on Bradley's interest in the relationship of the subjective consciousness with the objective world, and particularly on Bright's notion of the coloration of the individual mind with a longer, simple consciousness, can be linked to Eliot's persistent interest in individual and external patterns of order. The innovation of modernism, or more precisely, the dramatic experiments of the leading modernists, such as the English theatrical mainstream in the 20 years between the two world wars only indirectly. The work of the most representative English dramatists of the period, Noel Coward, contrasts vividly with the O'Casey. Coward combined the talents of actor, composer, librettist, playwright, and poser, and his long career allowed each aspect a more than simple expression. Grieve described a sense of alienation from post-war student life in Oxford, which he shared with his friend is from fellow officer. The poet Amok blunt, everything in their delight study was translated into trench warfare terms, and Grave was sat to find lecture, and he then interrupted by a sudden, very clear experience of man that march up by Bellingsley Besievered. So, Caption Barnett fictional style can be an accurate taste, requiring as it does a susceptibility, educate to respond to her distinctive but a seed. The worries, the worried, heterogeneous, and contrived scenery of the point of 1930 is abandoned abandoned for a landscape which are now literally subverting and unpredictable. It is a place where joy surprise and where areas and agape human and divine love achieve a conditional but ultimate victory in the imagination, subversion and unpredictability which had once so troubled Odenfeld Voigt on the 1930s are now taken as evidence of the divine. The temporal seems to be dissolvable in the internal thisness and otherness, in material and the mystical. So one of the most striking and popular visual images of to emerges from wartime Britain was John Armstrong modestly several painting can spring be far behind of 1940. Armstrong, who was employed with Henry Morse, Graham Sutherland, Paul Nash, and John Piper as an official war artist, drew an outside tulips boarding from the bombed brine of horses and surveys that again a purplish early morning sky. His poetic detail derived from Shelley or the West Wind enforced the idea of the spring of hope succeeding in winter of destruction. Unlike the battle of the First World War, the booming ride of the Second World War brought death and dissolution to what was known as the home front. Maybe it is all from me. I'm sorry for any mistake. So see you in the next video. Thank you.